Oups, attendez. Hop. Salut. Salut Panzer. Comment vas-tu? Je suis actuellement en train de chercher un jeu auquel je pourrais jouer. Pas très inspiré. Yvan et toi, un peu pareil. Matin, comment dire? Ça a été compliqué de dormir étant donné qu'il y a quelqu'un qui s'amusait avec sa perceuse dans la matinée. Enfin, bref. Du coup, je suis fatiguée, mais là, je suis en train de chercher un jeu. Tetris. Et j'ai pas Tetris, moi. J'ai pas Tetris dans ma bibliothèque Steam. Ah, il y a Spyro. Il y a Spyro, mais bon, j'ai pas envie de jouer à ça. Les jeux Flash, je suis pas sûre qu'il y en a encore, tu sais. Vraiment pas sûre qu'il y ait encore ça. Eh bien, il y a un Untitled Goose Game, je l'ai déjà fait. Et j'ai joué il y a 2 semaines. Ouais, mais pour ça, je pense qu'il faudrait que je prépare un peu. Que je prépare un peu le truc. Parce que j'ai même pas de scène en fait pour les jeux Flash. J'ai pas de flèche, j'ai pas de scène ni rien. Je vais trouver, t'inquiète pas, t'inquiète pas. Paniquons pas, restons. Gardons la tête froide. Ah tiens, hier j'ai fini. J'ai enfin terminé ma première enquête. J'ai enfin réussi à. J'ai trouvé le tueur. Je suis très très fière de moi. En même temps, je suis une détective. Mais j'ai aussi une arrestation à faire, mais je sais pas si c'est. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a d'autre? Détroit, j'ai déjà fait. De qui on starve. Dying Light. Ah, je sais ce que je vais faire. Attendez, je vais installer du Stanley. Isha l'avait fait, mais moi je l'avais pas fait. Salut Docteur Ghoul. Comment vas-tu? Ouais, il faut que je cherchais par nom parce que. Stanley Parabole. C'est un jeu que j'ai voulu faire. C'est la version de luxe, ultra pardon de luxe. C'est un jeu que j'ai toujours voulu faire parce qu'il a l'air très très drôle. Ça va et toi? Eh ben, fatigué en vrai. Un peu fatigué. Bon bah du coup j'attends qu'il se télécharge. Finalement j'ai choisi un jeu donc je vais le mettre à jour. Attendez. Euh... Sinon comment ça s'est passé votre journée? Hop. J'ai vraiment pas d'idée pour le titre donc tant pis. J'ai mis ça. Hop et hop. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Oh ouais, c'est ça. Allez, j'ai changé le titre, j'ai changé le truc. Je regarde si il est à 80%, ça devrait le faire. Parce que j'avoue que quand Isha y avait joué, j'y ai pas touché du tout. Stanley, on m'appelle. Bah, je sais pas trop. Je sais pas trop s'il s'agit de toi, Stan. Écoute, va falloir que tu me dises. Hop, j'ai lancé le jeu. Déjà, Stanley Parable, est-ce que ça te parle? Un mec qui recommence toujours la même journée, je crois que c'est ça. Et la journée change en fonction de ce qu'il fait. Et il y a un narrateur derrière qui dit ce qu'on fait. Please choose screen and subtitle language. Français. Texte et sous-titres français. Tu vas t'amuser. Le jeu est très bon, hein, ce qui paraît. J'avais regardé Isha y jouer. Et le jeu était très très amusant. J'ai cru comprendre. Attendez. Hop, normalement il y a le son et tout ce qui va avec. Avez-vous déjà joué à The Stanley Parable? Techniquement, oui. Déplacez le curseur jusqu'à ce que l'ordinateur soit à peine visible. Je vais pas faire trop parce que sinon vous risquez de rien voir. Je sais déjà ce que tu vas faire en premier choix. Ah bon? Vas-y, dis. Entrée l'heure actuelle. Quelle heure est-il? Ah. Il est 21h, c'est 9h, il me semble. 9h15. Je dirais juste si j'ai eu raison. Ok. P-aim. Marc, les paramètres d'accessibilité sont accessibles depuis le menu principal. Ça fait beaucoup d'accessible dans une même phrase. Hein. Mais bon. Oh, regardez, le menu il est reproduit sur l'ordinateur et de façon infinie. Enfin, infinie, de ce qu'on peut voir. The hand, never the hand, never the hand, never the hand.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year.
On t'entend pas assez par rapport
au narrateur. Might have considered it soul-lifting, Stanley relished every moment that the orders
Je vais baisser un peu le son du jeu.
Though he had been made
Je monte un peu le micro.
And Stanley was happy.
Est-ce que comme ça va mieux?
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Donc je suis debout, très bien. Et ceci est mon office. Ah, attendez, c'est en QWERTY je crois. Je vais voir si je peux pas le mettre commande simplifiée. S, aller à gauche, Q, à droite D, sauter space, interagir E, oui ça me va. Interagir supplémentaire, s'accroupir contrôle, déplacement automatique. Bon, ça me va très bien. Et les collègues ne disent pas bonjour, je trouve ça bizarre perso. Oh, je sais pas, peut-être qu'on est dans un... Peut-être que dans certaines entreprises, il n'y a pas ce genre de politique de fraternisation entre les collègues. Par contre, la souris est un peu trop sensible. Est-ce qu'on peut peut-être le changer? Général, sensibilité de la caméra. On va voir. Encore un petit peu, je dirais. Excusez-moi le narrateur, hein, j'essaie de régler mes petits soucis. Champ de vision, non, ça me paraît bien. Langue français, oui. Ah voilà, là c'est mieux. Alors. Par contre, c'est dommage que je puisse pas cliquer sur des choses là ici. J'ai l'air de cliquer sur un truc, mais... Ah, mais ça fait ce bruit là, peu importe ce que je fais. Vous ne pouvez pas sauter. Non, ça y est, on a supprimé l'option.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility?
Mais
He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go anywhere except badly.
Bon,
The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait.
Non, je veux pas
Nothing will
attendre.
hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever.
Non.
I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell.
J'ai une horloge.
But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do.
Non, je veux pas qu'on me dise ce que je dois
just a
faire, je veux
little
juste ouvrir
bit
la
closer.
porte.
Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
Ah. Bon, cette fois-ci, on va pas fermer la porte. Bon bah voilà, c'était la première fin, hein. J'espère que vous avez apprécié ce gameplay de folie.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
C'est bizarre
Stanley
ça.
went around touching every
Oui, je
little
savais même
thing
pas
in
que
the
tu pouvais
office,
avoir cette
but it
fin.
didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Bon alors du coup, t'as eu raison sur ce que j'allais faire ou pas? J'imagine que non. Ah. Just... Ah, attends. Qu'est-ce qui est marqué? I like work. I just hate my boss. Ah ok, d'accord. Ça mérite d'être clair. Ah bah du coup, non. Bon ça va, cette bloc là, cette porte ne se bloque pas. Je vais éteindre tous les PC allumés. What? Input received. Ce qui est bien, c'est que dans ce jeu, on peut faire plein de trucs, mais qu'on ne sait pas si ça va donner quelque chose. Alors par là. Non, pas par ici. Pas par ici. Bon, j'ai pas le choix, il faut que j'aille ici. Oh! Quelqu'un a dû faire ses... Quelqu'un a dû faire ses bagages. Bah alors le narrateur, t'as plus rien à dire?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
On va pas contrôler le narrateur tout de suite, hein. Donc on va aller à ce qu'il dit. Je fouille tout. Quoi? Non. Pourquoi? Pourquoi, Stan? De toute façon, je compte réessayer après.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a
Je pensais
wave
que tu
of
prendrais à droite.
disbelief,
J'ai tout perdu.
Stanley decided to go
Oh.
up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer
Alors,
there.
target push for new coffee machine. Get Chris out of the broom closet. Il y a quelqu'un qui est allé dans le placard avalé. Synergise Paper, hire someone to synergize paper. Paper are too synergized. Fire paper guy. Mais ils ont mis le feu au gars qui s'occupe du papier. Paper synergize guy, ok, ouais. Who moved my desk? Please keep the target on the topic of. Ça a été effacé. Alors ici, complete today unfinished agenda. Right next day agenda. Repeat. Attends, c'est faire repeat. The future was yesterday. Tomorrow is now. Not cost efficient. Il n'y a rien de sur moi et de ce que je fais dans la vie. Rossofo. Quarterly post review. D'accord. Alors, teenager. Size of demographic. Spare between the teenager. Mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ce truc? We need review. But I think... Ah, les reviews, d'accord, ok, les reviews du jeu. D'accord. But I think that's a stupid idea. More water cooler haters. Eater, chart needs to be more... big net, same sort of child play. Eh bien, ils ont étudié ça. On va faire ça, je veux dire. We have our new product. Oh là là, mais qu'est-ce qu'ils ont réfléchi? Il est où le truc? Ah, le projecteur il est trop haut. Synergize, core value expenditure, shift global market. Ok. Est-ce qu'ils ont réussi à sortir finalement?
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Il y a peut-être quelque chose, hein?
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Ah, je peux pas sauter. Bon. Je vais lui faire une blague, attendez. Est-ce que ça se ferme là? Ouais, c'est une porte qui va se fermer automatiquement, donc... Attendez, je retourne pour voir.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Bon allez, je vais ici, ça va se fermer, je parie.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Waouh, ça fait peur. Bon, pour l'instant, JPP la proc. Bah écoute, il faut bien hein, montrer au narrateur qui est le chef. Alors, c'est pas ouvert. Ah, pardon. Attendez, pour l'instant j'ai envie d'aller par là. Il est par où le bureau? Ça c'est quoi? Executive bathroom. Ah, ça je vais y aller. To be rich. Is it a crime? To commit crime. Isn't it rich? What life it would be to have to pick just one. Extreme bathroom. Ça dit quoi là-dessus? Qu'est-ce que c'est cette connerie? Extreme bathroom. Il y a du savon. Ok, ouais. Ma foi, ça m'a l'air d'être des toilettes tout à fait traditionnelles. Ensuite, c'est ici que je dois aller, mais moi je dois aller là. Oh no! Mais quel est le psychopathe qui garde des trucs comme ça chez lui? Business stratégie. Mais c'est incroyable. Je crois que j'ai cassé l'ascenseur. Je vais écrire amuse-toi bien, je te demanderai comment ton expérience. Pas de soucis Stan. Merci d'être passé. Est-ce que j'entre ici? Non, je vais d'abord aller dans... Non, allez. On va suivre d'abord. On va faire d'abord ce que le narrateur nous demande plus ou moins.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Il dit rien.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Il commence à perdre patience. Alors, 2, 8, 4 et 5. Attends, 4 c'est ici et 5 du coup 6. C'est ça, hein, ouais.
Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Whoop-de-doo. Voilà, le bureau. Et ces trucs-là, je les reconnais, ils sont dans les Fordel aussi. Ah, c'est pas assez large pour que je pense que je tombe. J'irai voir plus tard. Je vais d'abord aller voir ici un truc. Non, il n'y a rien. Je peux pas aller en haut.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Oh, c'est dangereux ici.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ah bon?
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Ça fait quoi si je fais effectivement? Il dit rien? Ouais mais non, j'ai décidé que j'allais quand même aller courir vers ma mort violente et brutale. Surtout qu'on est lundi. Non, on est quel jour? Je sais pas quel jour on est dans le jeu.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
T'as vu, narrateur, je suis pas morte.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Au revoir.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Oh! Carton.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Où est passé l'autre?
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Alors, ça j'aime bien. Ça j'aime bien. Ça j'aime bien. Ça bof. Ça j'aime bien. Ça j'aime pas. Bof. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ce truc? Les deux portes ouvertes constituent la toute première pierre du game design de Stanley Parable. Une fois que cette salle a été créée, le reste du jeu a émergé à partir de ce point de départ. Comme une exploration de la contradiction posée par cette pièce. D'accord, mais c'est ce que je peux. Les deux portes, laissez-moi entrer. Putain, je suis trop grande. Ça c'est bureau, ok. Putain, j'aurais juré qu'on aurait pu ouvrir une des portes. Dommage. Son de bouton. Une sélection de sons entendus dans le jeu à chaque utilisation d'un bouton. Chaque son est un mélange de frappe au clavier et de tonalité de synthétiseur. Ordinateur de bureau. Ah, quelqu'un qui joue au solitaire. Ah, j'ai éteint. Remerciements. Kevin. L'impeccable Kevin Brightfing. Le narrateur. Le bureau. Encore ? Salle de maintenance, l'une des premières versions de la salle de maintenance. Mais attends, je sais pas, aller à droite ou à gauche. Oui, à droite. Okay. Bureau du chef. Horloge du bureau, ça j'avais vu qu'il y avait une horloge. Fin de la liberté. Voici la toute première version de la fin de la liberté pour l'alpha du jeu. A button? Bureau du compte à rebours. Oh, il y a... Attends. Est-ce que c'est une bonne idée? Je regarderai après. Ascenseur de la salle des écrans. Bon, là, ça, c'est un autre truc. Eh ben, c'est qu'il y en a des choses. Ça doit être certainement la salle où je bossais. 427. Et son évolution dans le temps. J'imagine que ça devait être une des premières versions. Et après, c'est devenu... Le bureau, c'est un peu agrandi. Puis après... Oh, c'était à peu près la même chose, hein. Ah oui, non. Attendez. Oui, il y a quelques trucs qui ont changé, vite fait. Est-ce que je l'ai fait quand même, du coup, ce truc? Non, je vais aller plutôt par là. Ça n'est pas Rebel active.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Et si je fais demi-tour, tu vas dire quoi? J'ai plutôt appuyé sur le bouton finalement. Moi, le bouton! C'est un faux bouton! Oh! Bon, bah, je suppose que j'ai pas le choix, il faut que j'aille là. Elle est pas drôle cette narratrice, hein. L'autre au moins il réagissait un peu plus.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another?
Mm-hmm.
No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path.
Attends, qu'est-ce que
Stop now, and it'll be your only true
arrêtez-vous
choice.
maintenant, ce sera votre seul choix.
Do
Quoi que
choose
vous fassiez,
it. Don't
choisissez-le.
let time
Ne laissez
choose
pas le temps
for you.
choisir.
Don't
Ne
let
laissez pas. Oups. Bon, tout s'est bien passé finalement, regardez. Je suis revenue le lendemain. Allez, let's go!
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Meeting room. Je crois qu'ici on peut faire un...
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Non, je crois que pour l'instant je peux rien faire.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Pour l'instant ici il n'y a rien.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings.
Au final,
Really worth it.
that's worth it. Pas ouvrir le rideau? Non.
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
Peut-être. Regarde, je suis tellement folle que je sais de monter sur la table.
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue, but when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided that the game was trying to send him a message.
Vraiment? Allez, monte sur la table. Tu peux y arriver. Tout à l'heure, j'ai réussi. Oh, finalement, je fais demi-tour. Non, je peux pas.
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
Qu'est-ce qu'il dit? Caution, do not lie. If you're lying right now, stop. Alors je sais pas si ne vous couchez pas ou ne mentez pas.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
C'est une façon de m'insulter, narrateur? Comme ça reporte. Il est... Ah, il faut une carte. J'ai pas de carte. Do not jump from the cargo lift while it is in motion. Will cause death. Penalty for misuse of cargo lift, 1000. Penalty for jumping. Ah, punaise. Ah, punaise, je déteste avoir des dettes pour ce mortem. Je me demande si je peux aller là en bas. Il y a des cartons, mais ça me paraît haut quand même. Hein. Bon.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you.
Pourquoi tu voudrais que je m'en fasse pour les autres? Il n'y a plus d'autres, juste toute seule. Danger partout. Bah, très bien, allez, danger partout.
Give me a chance.
Tu parles comme un démon. Give me a chance. Cargo. Là, je peux l'ouvrir? Non. No buckets past 10 pounds. Quoi? J'ai pas de buckets.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Et si je m'amusais avec... Non, on va pas le contrarier plus que ça.
Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley?
No.
I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution.
Bah regarde, je me suis arrêtée.
Here, let me show you.
Ah, c'est exactement les mêmes portes ou bien c'est des portes différentes? Ça mène au même endroit? Bon, je vais essayer celle-là.
What do we want? What are we looking for? Une
sortie?
Here. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy.
Ouh. Ça me fait presque mal au cœur de faire demi-tour. On va faire recommencer le jeu, mais ici. Je me demande s'il comprend ce genre de truc.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Ah non, il se
What
souvient de
could
rien.
it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Moi, je veux aller ici.
No matter how hard Stanley
Je sais qu'il y a un
looked,
truc
he
qu'on peut
couldn't find a
passer.
trace of his co-workers.
Je sais pas comment on fait pour grimper là-dessus et aller ensuite par la fenêtre.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single
chacha.
difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Et je me... Je sais qu'il y a un endroit où on peut partir par la fenêtre. Me faites pas le coup. Me faites pas le coup. Bon, je sais plus comment on fait, je verrai plus tard.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Pas le temps.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Oh punaise, j'ai presque cru que c'était un truc que je pouvais ramasser. Ça me semblait tellement... out.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work
C'est vrai, il
hours.
faut que je m'en
He
aille.
might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
J'ai pas de pied.
Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went?
Ça, c'est toi qui
And
fais.
for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what
It's
a
a rêve.
relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too
Yay.
appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
C'est vrai ça.
Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life.
Je flotte pas là.
Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the
C'est
voice
vrai.
not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up.
Wake up.
He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine.
Oui, et bien sûr, évidemment.
I am
C'est normal
okay.
d'entendre une voix de narrateur dans sa tête. Ah, bah, je me suis pas réveillée finalement.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Waouh.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Huh?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better.
Oh punaise.
But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Très bien, je finis, je suis morte. Est-ce que je suis plus tannée?
All of his co-workers were gone.
Ah non, on
What
recommence
could it
juste.
mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Je me demande si un jour j'y accéderai à cet endroit-là. Oui. Je peux peut-être grimper sur une boîte. C'est peut-être comme ça que je peux aller par la fenêtre. Y a pas une boîte quelque part sur laquelle je pourrais... Non. Là non.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Je peux pas sauter. Et je peux pas grimper non plus. Oh.
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
Pour l'instant, il n'y a rien de très différent.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Est-ce qu'il s'en va, ce truc? Non. Nouveau contenu.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure. Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
Let's go.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
D'accord, je te donne le contenu. Kevin. The Jump Circle?
All right, let's see. It's the jump circle?
Oh! Et je peux... Non, je peux pas sauter à l'extérieur. C'est génial. Le dernier saut. Il faut qu'il veuille dire quelque chose. C'est tout.
Is that it?
C'est un peu ma réaction.
Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive.
Ouais,
It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Thank you for enjoying the new content.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Ouais, c'est dommage quand même. Hein. C'est plus pareil. Oh, l'ancien bureau. Ouh, narrateur, t'as remarqué? C'est plus pareil. Ouh.
Psst! Stanley! What? Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans cette vente? Il y a quand même des gens qui ont bu du café ici. C'est pas un piège, j'espère, narrateur.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past, and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look.
C'est vraiment ça que ça ressemblait T'es sûr? On dirait presque que t'as mélangé un jeu de bureau avec Skyrim. Après, si t'es sûr de toi. Oh.
I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
The Memory Zone. Téléphone. C'est vraiment dommage par contre que je puisse pas interagir avec les objets. Memory, sweet memory.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Waouh. Oh, attends, y'a quoi là? Oh, ce billet. Smile. Because it happened. Oh mais c'est quand... Attends, il garde les meilleurs souvenirs ici. Comment ça se fait qu'il a un cadre de moi qui est morte? Oh, il y a un banc.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Oh. On va regarder ici. Ah mais non, finalement je peux pas regarder ici, très bien. Person of the Year. Oh, c'est moi. C'est une petite figurine de moi et à côté, c'est la femme qui m'a retrouvée morte sur le trottoir. Oh.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect.
Non, si était
It
parfait,
didn't
le
need
10.
anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone. To spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video
Allez,
game
on sait qu'il y a plus que
memories.
ça. Jus de monstre. Ah. Demandez du jus. Ah, il faut que je lave. Je suis désolée, il faut que je lave ma gourde pour avoir du jus de monstre. Juste un verre d'eau. Ah ouais, parce que j'ai pas ma gourde, je te l'ai nettoyée. Ah, je me disais bien qu'il y avait quand même d'autres passages.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
Je suis pas sûre que ça te plaise ce qu'il y a là en bas, narrateur, mais on va y aller quand même. Ah, oui. Steam.
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection
Oh
of
my
reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Yeah. Let's see.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Oh, mais calme-toi, narrateur, tu sais très bien qu'on peut pas plaire à tout le monde. Même toi. Par contre, j'avoue que cet endroit, il est pas cool, hein. C'est à ça que ça ressemble Steam de l'intérieur. On dirait une plage... Enfin, je sais pas si c'est une plage, on dirait une forêt qu'on trouverait dans le nord. Ou en Bretagne. Je vais manger, il arrive. Bon, soit dit, je ne vais pas encore manger. J'attendrai un petit peu. Alors, attends.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I?
No.
You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear.
Mais par exemple, ça c'est
What
une
an
bonne.
awful
Pourquoi je peux pas la
memory to
lire?
have to hold on to. These black marks are my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel
Ah, là c'est une
like a
mauvaise.
failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Just repeating the whole no choice in games thing over and over again. For somebody who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Est-ce qu'on a fini avec les mauvaises reviews? Oh.
What's this one got to say?
I get that it's supposed to
You
be a
constantly
parable or
have to stop
something.
doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening.
I wish there was a
I
skip
wish there
button.
was a skip
Quoi?
button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley parable. That's my motto today,
Mais j'ai
and it's
jamais demandé à
always
ce que tu
been my
me...
motto.
Attends,
I
narrateur,
do
moi je suis plutôt
anything
d'accord
for
avec
the
toi,
customer's
le jeu il est bon,
yes,
je t'aime bien.
a skip button we shall have.
J'ai pas envie. Pauvre narrateur, je suis de ton côté. On est tous les deux dans le même bateau. Je peux même pas couler. Non, non, je ne veux pas. Oh. On va faire la porte.
And
Hein.
here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for,
Alors, j'ai très
and I'm
envie de laisser
very
parler.
proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No, 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 no. The Stanley Parable is a game for the people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue, and it goes something like this. The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say... the story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Or maybe a manifesto. Look, I'll outline it for you very briefly, and you can tell me what you think.
Very briefly,
okay, so my theory is that any choice you've ever made is simply a series of choices made by the person who you are, or were, or will be at the time of having made said choice. That is to say, if by articulating a choice you've already made, you bring that choice into being, then by making no choice and saying nothing, are you not simply erecting in the sanctuary of time a monument to every person you've ever been, making every choice to which you've ever given your Greek gift of mortal and yet timeless thought? Or rather, do all of the choices you've ever made, in fact, make you more not this kind of person, and in fact do the very opposite? You see, it could in fact be both of these things at once. That you are both making choices and not making choices, and that they are both affecting you and not affecting you at the same time by virtue of the fact that you both are and are not making them. Okay, at first I was leaning towards manifesto, but now I'm going to circle around and slap the treatise label on this one. I think it has much more of a treatise vibe to it. But wouldn't you say that manifesto just has a much grander sort of tone? It has a mouthfeel that is rich with ambition and history. Ambitious history, if you will. See, now you've gotten me going back to manifesto. Heavens, at this rate, we're going to be here all day. Okay, look, I have a method for exactly this sort of situation, and I do find myself in this situation frequently. I'm going to say each word back and forth in repeated succession until I become sick of one or the other, in which case the word I am not sick of shall be the victor. It is an unimpeachable strategy, Stanley. It's rescued me from disaster in countless situations. All right, here we go. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto.
Je me demande s'il y a une fin à ça.
Manifesto. Treatise, 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 manifesto.
Je préfère manifeste, moi.
Manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise,
je pense que j'ai pas le choix de cliquer là-dessus en fait.
Treatise,
je suis pas sûre, mais.
Manifesto.
Ah,
Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto.
Le pauvre quand même.
Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Treatise, manifesto. Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on exactly how Steam works. Perhaps that would have been the smart thing to check on before I went about this whole exercise of making the skip button. Although I have to imagine that after seeing this exciting new technology at work, surely whoever it is runs Steam will instantly run out and implement a new feature to make it possible to edit one's review, merely because of this very situation. Yes, I think that's quite likely. Or perhaps they'll simply grant this particular user the ability to change their review, so that the feature is not widely abused. Look, I would even be okay with Steam altering this particular review so that it reads as something more beneficial, something along the lines of, "This game is the best game." Let me start over. How about this? "From the ashes of depravity rises the phoenix of quality." Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes. It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate, I do suggest that we not press the button again. I think the skip button has been aptly demonstrated, and we can say goodbye to it and just... Wait, how do we get out of here? Where did the door go? Wasn't there a door that led into this room? I do feel quite certain that there was one here before. How else would we have gotten into the room in the first place? I don't think one can enter a room without a door of some sort, or a window or something like that. Do you see a window anywhere? A porthole? A sufficiently large crack in the wall? I'll take any of these. All I want is for us to move on and to please step away from the skip button, to go anywhere other than the skip button. There was a door here before, wasn't there? I swear there was. Where did it go? Can you maybe just ram your way through a wall? Is there any possibility that you could, say, slam your body into the wall until enough damage is done for you to be able to leave? Please, I'll take any option at all. I'm asking you to work with me here. We need a door. We need a door of some kind. I can work with any kind of door as long as it can open and lead from one room to another. I'm going to step away for just a moment, and I'm going to try to find us a door. I don't know how exactly to remove a door and place it in a different wall, but I will find a way, I promise. You just need to not do anything. Don't press the skip button. Please, please, please do not press the skip button. Just wait here for me, and don't press the skip button. Got it? Yes, good. I'll be right back.
Je me demande s'il finit par revenir. Ah, c'est ça qui est chiant aussi avec ce jeu, c'est que comme il y a des trucs qui sont prévus et d'autres non, non, je vais attendre un petit peu. Je vais manger une frite. Ah, je peux pas grimper là-dessus. J'ai vraiment envie d'être gentil avec le narrateur, mais je sais même pas s'il va revenir. Narrateur? Narrateur? Quelqu'un a déjà essayé de faire ça ou pas? Je me demande. Et je sais pas si... Mais regardez-le là, regardez-le en face de moi, il est tentant. Il me dit viens, appuie sur moi. Je ne te ferai qu'un mal. Tu seras heureuse en appuyant sur moi. Ne pense pas à ce narrateur. Il ne te veut pas du bien. Oui, mais le narrateur est mon ami. Non, il n'est pas ton ami. Laissez me convaincre. Je le vois dans ses... Je le vois. Le narrateur ne reviendra pas. Hein. Je parie. Oh, j'ai pas le choix, je crois, en fait. Hein. J'ai pas le choix. Je laisse encore quelques secondes. Le temps que la minute passe. Voilà. Quand l'aiguille rouge aura atteint le 12, je ferai skip. Pauvre narrateur, il va être tellement déçu de moi. Mais j'ai tout fait pour rester avec lui, tout. Le problème c'est qu'il n'y a pas de porte. Voilà. Le compte à rebours était écoulé. Je suis désolée, narrateur.
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer, and my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone.
No.
I've looked at it from every angle. I've checked every one of those walls 1,000 times. And there's no door, Stanley.
Alors, fais
there's
comment
no
pour sortir?
door. There's just you and the button. And if you keep pressing it, I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea how long I'll be made to sit here. And more than anything else, I don't know how to stop you from pressing the button again. I can't control anything in this room, Stanley. I can't touch it. And I have to believe, I have to know that sooner or later, no matter how much I plead with you, you're going to press the button again. Why would you? I've been thinking and I don't know what I can do to convince you otherwise. Oh my God. And it's all because of those reviews that I couldn't get out of my head. I just couldn't ignore the negative feedback. Why was it so important for me to fix the problem? Why did Cookie Nine's opinion matter so much to me? I've never even met Cookie Nine. I have no idea who they are. What would it ever really matter? But here I am. I'm fixating on every tiny negative thing that anyone ever says about me. The merest mention of one of my imperfections, and I become as impetulant as a child. Wild and impulsive. I can't help myself. I can't stop myself from lashing out with a vengeful fury to alter and to change and to break anything unbroken, if only it pleases this one person who made a single negative comment. What does such an impulse serve? For whose benefit is this? And here I am now, stuck in a room, waiting for you to press this button, and to become frozen in time, knowing that you're going to do it, and that I'm going to be stuck all alone, and that I had the power to prevent it all from happening, if only I'd held my tongue.
Ouais, mais finalement, c'est ta
It's all
faute.
out of my control now. Just you. Just your decision as to exactly when you're going to make me suffer, to leave me all alone. Surely you will. I don't doubt it. Surely you'll press that button again, leaving me here. And surely you'll put your own desire to see what's next ahead of my need for company, for companionship. Surely you'll not be moved by my howls of fitful anxiety, that you sit with me and just stay here. Oh, no, 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 I know you too well.
C'est pas tellement que je veux pas,
You'll be
narrateur,
leaving
mais
me.
c'est juste que c'est pas le choix.
God. And it's all because of those reviews that I couldn't get out of my head. I just couldn't ignore the negative feedback. Why was it so important for me to fix the problem? Why did Cookie Nine's opinion matter so much to me? I've never even met Cookie Nine. I have no idea who they are. What would it ever really matter? But here I am. I'm fixating on every tiny negative. Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing.
Pourquoi il n'y a plus de lumière?
Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking? But it isn't, Stanley. It isn't the same at all. It isn't even close. Because I know you can't hear me once you push that button. That's what I'm realizing now, Stanley. I'm realizing that I needed to know that someone was listening. I needed there to be a vessel through which my words were moving. It was the vessel I needed, Stanley. Not the outcomes, not the story. None of that matters anymore. I'll give it all up. I'll give up every branching path. I'll burn my story to the ground. One single thing I need, and God, I can see now that I need it more than anything, is to know that someone else is taking it in. These words that I'm saying, I need to know you can hear me.
Mais oui, on les
Because
entend,
maybe,
t'inquiète
Stanley,
pas,
maybe
regarde, hop.
if you can... Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret.
J'essaie de me culpabiliser. Est-ce qu'il y a le feu?
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't... The end is never the end, 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 is never...
Une porte, s'il vous plaît. Oh, il y a de l'eau. Oh. C'est tout délabré. Ah bah oui, il y avait de l'eau ici, du coup ça s'est effondré parce que ouais bah c'était délabré quoi. Oh. Mais je peux pas monter là-haut. Il faut que j'attende encore un peu que le mur se dégrade. Mais le mur était censé se dégrader pour que je puisse grimper en haut. Oh, oh, oh. C'était mieux avant. Chelou. Ah, le bouton. Il est cassé. Oh. J'étais dans un bunker pendant tout ce temps. Et maintenant, l'extérieur, c'est un désert. Bon, moi, je vais m'éloigner, hein. Je vais m'éloigner, hein. Je pense qu'il n'y a que ça à faire. Je vois pas trop de bâtiments ou quoi que ce soit au loin, mais... Oh well.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Je suis sûre qu'ici, à un moment, je peux y aller, mais je sais plus comment on fait. Il y a forcément un endroit... Ah! Oui! Ah?
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet? Ah, then in that case we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different? Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh, now think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you've just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected Continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well now, I've built up the other option so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever and ever. Cheers.
Tu en as marre de cette blague? Ouais, les plus courtes sont les meilleures. Eh oh. Je peux pas m'éloigner en plus. Eh ben d'accord, je vais recommencer. Mais cette fois-ci, je vais faire oui.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Et ici où j'avais réussi. Ah, voilà. Vas-y, vas-y. Allez. Allez, Stanley. Allez, Stan, oui. Voilà.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet? Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want, like right now. You could have done it just then. Now would also be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on where you are literally unable to act on your own desires to restart the game. So, just to push the envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain.
What?
There once was a man named Stanley, who people considered so manly. But the truth must be told, he was not very old and was quite particularly gangly. What Stanley liked most was buttons. He pushed them like some kind of glutton. He did it all day in a meaningful way, but his brain had long ceased to function. Which is why he is in this parable, and lives an existence quite terrible. And if you are not strong and keep playing along, you too will become quite unbearable. Yes. You too will become quite unbearable.
C'est une très belle chanson.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
New content.
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Ça va être génialissime. J'espère que c'est autre chose que des ascenseurs cette fois.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2.
Wow.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Ouais.
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Oh, un oiseau. C'est pas un... C'est un portable Raven. Là. Oh, il est allumé. C'est le nom de qui dessus? J'arrive pas à voir. Les dessins. New content is out. New content partie 2 is in. One, two. The color red. Oh, ils ont fait vraiment tout ça. On dirait qu'ils ont fait un brainstorming juste pour trouver 2. On va l'appeler 2. Ok, bon là ils ont mis 2 plantes au lieu d'une. Ils ont mis... les 2 parties de cerveau, très bien.
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
User design pitch on brick on the pitch design. MIDI 2 number 2. That. 2 eyes, ears, 2 nostrils, 2 arms, 2 legs. Il manque pas un buste. C'est comme ça. Who took the red marker? Me. The prequel of the Stanley Parable. 2 is sequel to the Stanley Parable. The prequel to the Stanley Parable. 2 is prequel. Ok, bon. Oh, si c'est pas mignon, ils ont dessiné des 2 partout. Et ça, c'est quoi? Meeting at 2 p.m. Stanley Management. The Ultimate Square. Crab. Pourquoi un crabe? On peut voir ce qu'il y a sur l'écran. Ah, dans l'écran, il n'y a rien. This way to the show flow. On peut vraiment pas aller par là? Bon. Oh. On dirait une scène qu'il y a dans Jurassic Park. Et dans Jurassic Park aussi, il y a un bus. Dans le deuxième. Ouh.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Merchandising. I saw the new content. Oh, mais cette main! Then the end is never the end again. This t-shirt is the best new feature. Celui-là, il est très minimaliste. Hein. Enfin, ils ont juste mis des 2 rouges sur un t-shirt. Décoration du bureau. Saut de réconfort de Stanley Parable. Le bouton qui dit le nom du joueur qui joue au jeu. J'ai bien envie d'aller chercher le saut de réconfort. Please, no screenshot. Saut de réconfort. Oh.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game.
Y a pas de saut.
It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution.
Give me the bucket.
Come on.
Yes,
give
me the bucket. Et rigolez pas comme ça.
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well?
Ooh.
I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
Je m'en vais donc avec mon seau réconfortant pour apprécier les autres features.
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
Red is the new orange. Ça c'est quoi? Name. Heroes today. Hear your name in the game. Ooh.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Mhm.
Jim. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim.
Bon.
But of course, in the final game, this
Bah, c'est
button
bien
will
si
say
vous appelez
your
Jim,
name,
j'imagine.
whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim.
Je suis Jim.
I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and
Je
waking as
m'appelle
Jim,
Jim.
falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim,
Certaines
and as
personnes m'appellent
Jim,
même
watching
Jimmy.
your dreams crumble into dust. Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly Jim right
Oui,
now?
bien sûr.
If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Viens-toi. T'appelles Jim.
Jim.
Oh punaise, il l'a dit.
Yes, you see? What a thrill, what a rush. That was
c'est
you.
génial.
The button described you. Do it again, do it again.
Ok, je refais.
Jim. It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley
Je me lasse
Parable
pas.
2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Non, c'est vrai. On va regarder ce qu'il y a d'autre. Là, il n'y a rien. J'ai quand même envie d'entendre une dernière fois mon prénom. Jim. My name is...
Whoa there, cowboy.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person can be too much Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
Non, je m'appelle Jim. C'est mon bouton. Heureusement que j'ai le seau. Too big. Bon. Just try it. Il s'y connaît en bouton, il sait faire le truc comme ça. Rien ne peut m'arriver avec mon super seau.
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
N'est-ce pas là un petit peu de la paresse, narrateur? Ou sans fond? Oh, easy achievement. Attends, il me faut. Give me that.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well,
À
I'm
moi
developing a
l'achèvement.
technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes. Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Bon, je tente une dernière fois. Alors là, narrateur, je trouve ça particulièrement décevant. Heureusement que j'ai le saut. Je fais demi-tour. Je vais plutôt aller voir le trou sans fond. Il y a intérêt à ce qu'il n'y ait pas fond.
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Le jump circle, mais j'en ai plus, je veux plus sauter.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's... Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump
oui.
circle? Oh well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
Mais... C'est gratuit, ou sans fond. No screenshots.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with?
Happy birthday. Get well someday. Happy 12th birthday. Yes.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Get Well Someday it is.
Ah!
Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
J'aurais dû prendre ma décision à moi. Bon, il est où ce trou sans fond là? J'imagine que je dois pas aller par là. Ça veut rien dire. Ah! Opening Rim, Depth Infinite, Surrounding Area aussi. Ok. Infini.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Bon bah let's go.
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward. Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things.
Lointain plutôt. Waouh.
Okay, Stanley, I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity.
Dis donc,
From
j'aime pas
one
pourquoi on se moque
perspective,
de moi.
the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a... Hey, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever. Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem. Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the hole mostly infinite?
Ou alors très
If
très
that
profond.
works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready.
Non.
Great. Now, I'm very excited to show you. Oh, for heaven. You see, I was right. The problem is you. The problem is that you like holes too much. Not normal. A normal person would have said, yep, that's an infinite hole right there, goes on forever till the end of time. Don't need to see it all, but not you. Oh, no, 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 no. You have a weird sort of...
Il est plus court que tout à l'heure.
Oh. Did the hole seem even shorter to you this time? I couldn't help but feel like you spent a little less time in there than you did before. I mean, admittedly, I didn't make an infinite hole, but I didn't think it was that not infinite. Well, I suppose once again there's nothing to do here. If you decide you've had enough of the hole, you can hit the teleport button and come join me up above.
Je réfléchis.
Had enough? I'm positively thrilled. I really do have so much more to show you and to talk about, and I've had enough of the hole for a lifetime. Gosh, how could I have guessed? You're back in the hole. If this starts to become a thing where... Wow, okay, yes. I'm starting to become extremely certain that the hole is not only not infinite, but that it's growing steadily less and less infinite. I suspect that I'm starting to hit the point where it's no longer feasible to call the hole infinitely deep, even by the lax overall standards for accountability and marketing. What's going on here? Stanley, I have no explanation for the uncertain nature of the hole's length. Here, let's try something. Let's pop back up to the top, and we'll see if it gets any shorter.
Ok.
Well, there it is. The shame of my lie has come to haunt me. Not only is the... How is this still appealing to you? I know you're obsessed with holes, but at this depth, I just can't see this scratching the itch. Oh, who am I to judge? You just do whatever it is you're here to do and hit the teleport button when you're ready to move on. Is the, teleport button not working? You sure?
Ah ouais.
Well, I mean, I really don't have an explanation. It was working just a moment. Still nothing? Well, I suppose there is one thing I can do to fix this. I'm out. Goodbye, Stanley. You couldn't bear to be away from the hole, and now you'll get more time with it than you could ever have asked for. It's a win for everyone. You get to be with the hole, I get to do literally anything else. Take care, Stanley.
Pas longue.
I hope you and the hole have a wonderful rest of eternity together.
Il va me laisser là. Oh! Mon saut? Pourquoi je ne tiens plus? Ah. What the fuck?
My head's stronger. Now you're not.
En afsluit nu stuur dat gespeeld verweerd nou die is de mouse dus een eerste wedstrijd zo op spikken echt wat met er als het serpes en de zo meneer bij op was er heel en maar heel lezen
C'est l'horreur. Pas une petite musique sympa? Jaune. Enfin, c'est plus un vert. Rose. Mais qu'est-ce que je suis? Ah. Ah, je pense que j'ai fait le tour.
Stanley? Stanley? Stanley!
Wow.
Oh, good, you're awake. It seems you had sort of dozed off there,
Hey, t'aurais
drifting
pu me
away
laisser
into
dormir.
dreamland. But we can't have that, Stanley, because this hole is just so darn fascinating that I want you to be wide awake for every second of it. You don't want to miss a single moment. So how about if I just pop in from time to time and wake you up to keep you really, truly focused on the hole? From the looks of things, you and I will have many, many years here in this hole, and I'm looking forward to all of them. Stay alert, Stanley. I'll be back. Toodlepip.
Tata. J'ai quand même l'impression qu'il me punit parce que j'ai trouvé que son trou avait un fond.
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features.
Bon, on va aller voir si le trou est resté les clés. Même si j'imagine que quand même il a appris la leçon et il a pas refait la même chose. Tiens. Alors c'est comme ça qu'on accueille les critiques. Quand les critiques sont pas bonnes, on essaie pas de s'améliorer, on cesse simplement de faire fonctionner le truc. Bah bravo. Can you find them? Oh les collègues. C'est joli par contre.
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
En vrai, les collectibles, c'est pas trop mon truc. Sauf s'ils apportent quelque chose. Je préfère mon seau. Il a l'air de faire la tronche cette année.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
C'est d'accord. Mais pourquoi il l'a fait du coup?
All right, have you seen everything you wanted to?
Oui.
Ready to move on now?
La moitié, enfin plus de la moitié était plutôt décevante. Heureusement qu'il y a le saut pour le rattraper le coup.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work.
Non,
There's
le jeu
definitely
est
a
même
good
pas
game
cohérent
in
de
there
base.
somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay, are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could, but it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, this is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Oh. Mais si... Bah alors, essaie de te reposer alors. Quand même, entre deux. Tu sais sur quel jeu tu vas aller déjà ou...
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day, every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. Stanley was happy.
Il lui en faut peu pour être heureux.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Pourquoi tu
Stanley
dois
went
rire?
around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way. Stanley picked up the
Yeah.
bucket.
Mon seau. Mon seau. Attention, c'est pas n'importe quel seau, pardon.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Allez. J'ai mon seau. Rien ne peut m'arriver.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers.
Oh,
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket.
What?
You can feel
No.
that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies.
c'est mon
Good
seau.
for you, Stanley.
On me l'a donné à moi.
Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong
Je dois le
friend.
garder avec moi.
You can't hand it over. Oh no.
Même s'il
We're
me
getting
fixe du
into
regard, il faut que je
name-calling now, it
résiste.
seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket?
Non.
Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends?
C'est faux.
That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner?
Je m'en
Well,
fous.
I'd
Moi, j'ai un
never.
seau quand même.
Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared
C'est tout
together.
ce que je veux faire.
Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it.
Comment je fais pour l'insulter?
Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled.
Qu'est-ce
No
qu'il a
more
fait?
debate, no more discussion. Take a hike, broom
propriété de
closet,
Stanley.
with all your
Prends ça.
meandering philosophical
Ça,
diatribes
tes placards.
about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket
Désolé, je te
walked
coupe un peu.
upstairs to the boss's office.
Est-ce que les toilettes ont changé? Executive bathroom. Oh,
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
bizarre, ça me fait pas grand-chose. Mais j'ai mon seau. C'est tout ce qui importe.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding
Heureusement
light
qu'il est là, quand même.
pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always.
Pour toujours.
The bucket would. And he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk.
Oh, bah bon,
Nor in
tiens.
his bliss of
J'avais pas
simply
remarqué.
being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Évidemment. Oh.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini-stands? Stanley figs? What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Je préférais Mini-Stan. J'ai mon seau.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
La dernière fois, j'étais allée ici, donc j'ai quand même essayé d'être dans la salle de Mind Control. Il ne peut rien m'arriver, j'ai mon seau.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Vous avez vu, il pense comme moi. On est tellement sur la même longueur d'onde, lui et moi. C'est pour ça que c'est mon meilleur ami. Oh oh.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs.
Mais il y a personne.
The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Je me demande où est mon bureau. Celui-là? Non, c'est pas celui-là. Moi, je suis au 200... ou au 127. Bon, peu importe.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had
Impossible.
the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
J'ai pas le choix.
No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire
C'est le
world.
seul en qui je peux avoir
At this
confiance.
point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
Ah, tout va bien.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Ouais. Parce que souvent, c'est un petit peu lui qui fait les... qui dit les trucs intelligents, vous voyez. Moi, je le porte.
When at last they came to the source of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
C'est fini.
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door.
On pourrait aller à la
The bucket
campagne.
wanted to learn to roller
Tu pourrais
skate.
m'aider à te faire
Stanley
des
wanted to
vaches.
sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and...
On pourrait. Oh,
What? Wait. What was happening?
la liberté.
Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty.
Et notre vie à
Until
la
finally
campagne.
the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part.
Mais c'est le mien, il était propriété de Stanley dessus.
No. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay,
Est-ce que
won't
je vis
I?
encore?
Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Mon seau. Ils ont pris mon seau.
All of his co-workers were... Wait, no. This isn't the right office, is it? Is this Stanley's office?
Get well someday. J'espère. Mon seau maintenant. Ah. Propriété de Stanley, vous voyez bien?
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
J'ai vraiment cru qu'il me l'avait pris cette fois.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley
génial.
reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired.
Quelle expérience.
No, never mind. The bucket was wrong.
Non.
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift. Good.
Said the bucket.
Oh, il y a une figurine.
Now
de
ride the
Bref.
lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Ok.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk.
Non, mais lui, c'est
But
bien.
Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Il peut pas me vouloir de mal, c'est
In
le mien.
here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Mais elle est pas du tout sombre cette pièce. Ah, tu parles de cette pièce-là. Bon, je te fais confiance, mon seau.
Now pick up the phone.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
Mais il peut me parler. Où est-ce qu'il est? Ils ont pris mon seau. Ah! Juste année, c'est moi ton seau. Appuie sur O pour m'emmener au travail avec toi.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head.
Ils m'ont encore pris mon seau.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object? I want to say something to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me.
Arrête de dire des bêtises sur mon seau. Toi-même t'as dit qu'il était super bien.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me?
No.
Listen to me.
Mon seau.
It's just a bucket.
No.
It can't think. It can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location.
alors, c'est déjà
That's
bien.
it. It doesn't do anything else.
Il m'a parlé tout à l'heure. Vous mentez.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket.
Oui,
You
le
know,
bucket.
once upon a time it was me he took orders from, me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares
Oui,
about is
bucket.
this awful bucket, this stupid hunk of metal.
Et insulte pas mon bucket. Pour ignorer tout le monde dans ta vie, ça va. T'as raison, de toute façon les autres ils sont pas utiles, je serai juste avec toi.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The
Avec
bucket
lui, je
does have a
travaille
nice
beaucoup mieux.
shine to it.
Bien sûr que je sais que tu existes, bucket.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a
regarde la
little
télé
more,
ensemble.
what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another. Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water
Bucket?
from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
Let's go.
Oh no. I'm having feelings. For the bucket. No. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket?
C'est mon seau.
Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me?
on va
I don't
écouter du jazz.
understand.
Je sais que t'adores le jazz.
Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes. The bucket could tell me what
Oh,
to
t'as
do
demandé à la
in
poêle
this
de l'aide,
troublesome
c'est gentil.
situation.
Et
Stanley,
même la
give
planche,
me
elle-
the bucket.
Non.
Give it to me.
Non.
Give me the bucket, Stanley.
C'est le mien.
I need it. Give it to me now. Give it or I'll...
Regardez, je peux plus travailler sans mon seau. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez que je fasse? Bucket?
All of his co-workers were... The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket.
J'ai vraiment cru que je t'avais perdu pour toujours. C'est à cause du narrateur. Pas étonnant que les gens ne l'aiment pas. Bon, où je dois aller moi maintenant?
Stanley pressed the bucket upon every little thing in the office. Nothing risked. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Je me sens beaucoup mieux. There will be a reward for finding them all. Qu'est-ce qu'il raconte? Lies. Who are you? On dirait un peu un genre de truc qu'on pourrait trouver dans les 4 Dead. Trust the completionist instinct. Stop kidding yourself. I want them so much. I want to go home. There will be cleaning up this world required. C'est sûr qu'il faudra laver ce truc. Red room. Thank you, good luck. Why wouldn't they just tell us something will happen? This investigation, this room, they feel pointless, to be honest. Qu'avons-nous sur la table? Quelqu'un a renversé son café sur le projet. F-file confidentiel. Alors il y a quelque chose avec ces trucs-là. Collecting is sexy. Beware the false prophet. Un faux prophète. Gotta collect the door. 5 here. B. Just take it from me. It's some kind of game. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a, Esther?
All right, I've got a second sticker back here,
oui,
and I'm
mieux.
going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate.
J'attire ton attention, oui.
You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket. That way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket. There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker.
This is my bucket.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked
No.
upstairs to the boss's office.
Donc tu attires mon attention sur quoi exactement?
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley
Ah,
figurines.
on est d'accord
And
que
now I'm
que
torn
Stanley,
between
c'est pas
Stanlerines
très bien.
and Figlers. What do you think,
J'attire ton
Stanley?
attention
What
sur
name
moi.
better
Oui, on attire mon
encapsulates the
attention et sur toi.
intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Moi je trouve que les mini Stalin c'était plutôt pas mal, ou les mini Stan même.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post
si je
during
m'en
work
sors.
hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive
J'ai pas
economy,
réfléchi plus
why
que ça.
had he taken
Ah,
that risk?
d'accord.
All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then, something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe
j'ai un seau,
I
je suis
am
pas fou.
crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source
J'ai pas
of
réfléchi
guidance
plus que
and
ça.
wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort.
C'est
And
pas mon
that's when
seau.
Stanley
C'est pas mon
realized,
seau.
this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday
Quelqu'un m'a
bucket.
pris mon seau.
Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding
Mais
presence
du coup
of
je
his
fais comment?
bucket.
J'ai pas de seau.
And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me!
Oui, j'arrive.
The bucket!
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were
C'est
his.
lequel?
None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me,
Mon nom dessus.
Stanley! Find me!
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Eh bien.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security,
Oh non,
and
me
walked
dites
to
pas
her
qu'on va
place
encore me
of work.
retrouver. Eh, la
But on this
moto!
particular day, her walk was
Grognasse!
interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk.
Ou alors tout le monde
Right
a un seau
away,
et je suis
she
mort parce que
knew
j'en avais
what
plus
the
le mien.
problem was. This man had no bucket.
Oh non.
Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him.
Seulement j'avais eu mon seau.
Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Mais on a vécu tellement de choses, mon seau et moi, c'est incroyable. Pourquoi il faut que ça se finisse comme ça? Pourquoi? Il est quelle heure? Il est 23h41, je vais m'arrêter là. Je pense que l'idylle avec mon seau était la fin. Voilà. J'ai décidé que ce serait la fin de mon aventure avec Stanley. Perso, je suis confus face à ces histoires de seau. Comment ça? Bah, tu dis ça parce que t'en as pas en fait. Je crois. Enfin, sauf ton respect. Moi j'ai un seau. Toi t'en as pas, c'est pour ça en fait. C'est bien ce que je dis, t'en as pas. Et bah, c'est pas pour moi, tu sais, c'est bien pour ça qu'en fait, tu ne comprends pas cette histoire de seau. C'est parce que tu peux pas comprendre justement. Faut un seau pour comprendre. Qu'est-ce que je vais faire? Je vais vous envoyer quelque part. Non, je vous envoie nulle part. En fait, j'ai décidé que j'allais juste faire les pubs réseau. Voilà. Et puis surtout, faites attention. Ne perdez pas. Ne perdez pas votre seau. Attendez, je suis pas sur le bon truc. Pourquoi je suis tout à droite? Ah, voilà, là c'est mieux. Bon, j'étais en train de dire, soyez sages. Passez une très bonne nuit, une très bonne soirée. Merci à tous ceux et celles qui sont restés sur ce stream. J'espère que vous êtes amusés. Et puis, je vous dis à la prochaine. Soyez sages. Bye bye.